Well, I'm looking at a verse this morning. I had done a previous message and I had made a statement and a comment about faith. And I think I might have maybe had worded something unintentional. The message I think I was doing that morning was on the message of faith. I went back and I listened to the message, and there was one statement where I had said out of my own mouth that some men don't have faith. Well, the Bible says every man has been given a measure of faith. Some measurements, if I had a tape measure and if I would have thought about it before I come out, I'd have brought a tape measure. It doesn't matter if my faith is as long as this pen. It doesn't matter if my faith is longer than this lighter right here. The truth of the matter is, every man has been given a measure of faith, but not every man uses their faith. That maybe would be a little bit more correct statement. Not everybody uses the faith that God has given to them. And when I went back and I studied, I'm looking at Romans chapter 12 and verse 3, where it lets us know that every man has the ability of faith, or has the measure of faith. For I say, this is Paul writing, through the grace given unto me. See, God is allowing Paul to write under the grace umbrella. He says, to every man that is among you, talking about the people that are in this place, the people of Rome that he's referring to here, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. A lot of people have a high and mighty way of looking at themselves. They think of themselves as the only ones right. They come across to people that it's their way or the highway. Well, that's not necessarily true, because Paul here said not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. Some people has a high opinion of themselves. It's not really about my opinion. It's really about what thus saith the Lord. We all have opinions. And my mission the other day in that message was to let it be known that there's people that are not using their faith. It's not that they don't have faith, because it goes on to say, but to think soberly. Meaning, when you think soberly, now some people's going to say, well, that's talking about not being a drunk. No, it could mean that. But when you think soberly, he says here, but to think soberly, meaning with a clear head, with clear understanding, with clear knowledge. There's a lot of people that are lost today that don't utilize their faith. God has given to every person a measure of faith. That came from God when he created man in his image and in his likeness. So every man has the ability to have that faith that they need. I have faith that there is oxygen in this room. I have faith in that. I come out here with the desire of bringing clarification to the words that I said before. Now, somebody's going to listen to the video and not going to listen to this one, and they're going to say, well, you said that man didn't have faith. Well, what I'm doing today is I'm correcting my statement, because it says, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. Now, I'm not a card player. I don't know how to play cards. I don't know how to play rummy. I don't know how to play gin. There's one thing I know how to play in cards, and it's a game called concentration. Concentration, you take the deck of cards, you lay them out on the table, and then you start turning the cards over. And when you start turning the cards over, you have to remember where you seen that card. And you have to have a good memory to play concentration. Now, that is a game that I know how to play. I've done it before, and I enjoy trying to remember where the right cards are. The more pairs you get, the better off you are. The more likely that you'll win, the more pairs you get. That's the object of the game. But if you notice what he said right here, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. So I can almost sort of see the Lord dealing so much faith to this person and dealing so much faith to that person. Now, when you play the regular card game, and I don't know when you start throwing out cards to each one, I don't know what that game is. I'm sure that maybe some of y'all do. But when you're dealt, they don't know what's in the deck of cards. They don't know if they're giving you an ace, or they're giving you a 3 or a 5 or a number or whatever. The dealer doesn't really know what is being dealt, but here's what is being dealt. Every man has been dealt a measure of faith, a lot like a card game. But God's not dealing cards. When he uses that word dealt right here, according as God hath dealt, that word dealt could also mean given. God knows the amount of faith God has given me. God knows how much faith I'm using. God knows how much he gave me from the time of my birth. God knew that I would use my faith later in my adult life. To be just totally honest with everybody, I wasn't saved until I was 48 years old. I didn't have salvation beforehand. I went to church. I was a member of a church. I sung the songs. I listened to the preaching. Very little was on the subject of salvation. I mean, there wasn't really no evidence of people getting born again. But I happen to believe now, due to the fact that God has dealt with me a measure of faith, that I believe that the amount of faith I have now allows me to care about the people that are lost. Did God deal with me a greater hand of faith because I care about the lost? I don't want to see the lost go to hell. I don't want to see the lost go to hell. So has God dealt to every man the measure of faith? According to this, God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. So if a person decides that, you know what, I want to remain lost, I want to remain a heathen. Now, I didn't use the word. There's a verse in the Bible that uses the word heathen. When I hear the word heathen, I think of a mad dog. I think of a dog that has got a problem that when he bites, he's foaming at the mouth. But you know, I was a heathen at one time without the Lord. Even though he's given me a measure of faith, it's like the Lord has given me a measure of faith. But what if I don't do nothing with it? What if I just say, I still got the measure of faith because God has given me the measure of faith. But if I'm not using the measure of faith, is my measure of faith valuable to me? If I'm not using it, if it's right there in my grip to be able to use and I don't use that measure of faith, or can I use that measure of faith by picking up that measure that he has given to me and applying it to my heart? Because God has given to me a measure of faith. He has dealt to me a measure of faith. And to the lost person, you will not be able to say you didn't know. If you happen on this channel, when I post this on live video, and I post it on Facebook or YouTube, and you happen to come across this section of verse that I'm using today, you will hear that you have a measure of faith, that God has dealt to you a measure of faith. He's dealt with you a measure of faith. Now, the question is, what do you do with it? I don't think I would have even come out here to make this video had I not heard myself say that all men doesn't have faith. No, every man has faith, but some people are not activating the faith. So it's a lot like they have no faith. But that's not true, because Paul said, the Lord himself hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. Remember what faith is. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it, the elders obtained a good report. Now, does that mean that all the people used their faith? Is there people out there that you might say, you might be openly willing to admit, you know, Brother Ken, my faith is really on the border. My faith is just really, really low. I hear people say all the time, I lost my faith, or I'm losing my faith. No, your faith has got weak. You know, if you take a match, and I'm going to use this, I wasn't even planning on using it. Sooner or later, that little fire right there is going to get weak and it's going to go out. Sooner or later, this fire is going to give up. And you see there, I ain't done one thing different. It gave up the ghost because this thing is getting empty. There's a lot of people that are getting empty when it comes to believing in the Lord. They might believe. God is faithful to the ones that do believe. But every man has been given a measure. So if you happen to come out here and find this video, you have been put on notice that you have a measure of faith. Now, does God own that measure of faith? If a person is lost and is in a lost condition, then this can be the measure of faith. But if the measure of faith if the measure of faith is not working, I'm trying to light it. See, my reservoir is empty, but this is going to go out. You need to ask yourself, is your faith activated? You know, people go in the military, they go through the 8 weeks of boot camp, they get ready and they get their assignment of where they're going to be for their service to the country. The soldier really don't get to pick where he goes. If they send him to Germany or Iraq or Afghanistan, wherever it is, they generally have to go where they sent. They don't go and say, no, I don't like it there. I want to go to Hawaii. They don't generally do that, not at the very beginning. I talked to the old veteran the other day, and he told me his duty in the service, his duty was to radio when they saw the planes come over. You know what? That was a very important duty. He saved a lot of people's lives by being the lookout. You know, the boats that he was on was never attacked by nobody because they was too small. But yet them boats had radios in it. And when they saw the enemy planes leaving out or going and coming, they would radio. They would get on the radio and they would let them know that, look, the planes are in the air. You know what that did? That gave the other side the preparation time that they needed. You know, God has given to every man a measure of faith, but it's how we use it. I can use mine to win souls. I can use mine to lay my faith down and not care if I use it. But here's the thing. I'm going to be rewarded for the faith that the Lord has given me. Do I want to use the faith that the Lord has given me? Yes. Is there reward in it? Yes. Does God get glory in a person's faith when they're exercising their faith? I believe it does. You need to ask yourself a question. Do you feel activated when the Lord has given you the faith that He's given you? Is He in control of your flame? Something to think about. I hope that maybe people will come by and watch this message that goes along with the message that I brought about the faith. I hope this clarifies what I was trying to say anyway. Elderly Ministry is the website here. You have the ability to get on that website to hunt the number. The number is very easy to get to. You just go up there at the top where you say the menu and you click on that and look to your left-hand side and you will see that there's a printed phone number. You're welcome to give me a call. You're welcome to talk. I'd love to talk to anybody. Anything that you need. I have email. I have the cell number. I have the time. I have the energy to be able to speak. I'm thankful for what the Lord has given me and what He's doing in the ministry that I'm doing. Right now, my ministry is shut down in the nursing home. So I thank y'all for watching. Share the video if you think it'll help somebody. Subscribe to the channel. Help build the platform. Send the video out. We don't do anything here. We don't charge for anything. Everything that we do is free. We have nothing to sell, nothing to market. Okay? Thank y'all for watching.